studio, or should I call you Mario?
I would call me Mario, Luigi.
Do not expect me to put an accent on.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I can't do it.
Otherwise, your mustache will come off.
Absolutely. If anybody is watching this on our Facebook page or out and about and want to watch this, I think this is a hoot. You have come in the past with, what was the costume before that you came in as?
Well, I've been Yoda before.
Okay, yeah.
Well, and the man in the yellow hat.
Oh, there you go.
So this is a new one, and it's probably arguably maybe the most embarrassing.
Is the mustache too high on me? I don't know.
I maybe a little bit. I mean, it's coming out of your nose, mostly growing out of your nose.
Okay, fine.
Okay, good.
He's got you've got your Mario props. I've got the Luigi props here, and you're having fun.
I mean, we are having fun. It's good. It's good to have fun, isn't it?
Absolutely. If you want to watch the segment, we're streaming it live on our Facebook page on Hot Country Hits and 102.7 Mom FM. You brought in fake mustaches. You got the suspenders here, and the Mario and Luigi hat. And Heather here is behind a little bit of this. Do you ever just tell her no?
I do, and then she goes, here.
Absolutely.
I think we all know what that's like from the women in our life.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate Heather's energy and your excitement, because between the two of you, you are making the office just a more exciting and entertaining environment, and especially when it comes to Insurance Awareness Month, right?
Yeah, we actually have Life Insurance Awareness Month in September. Every September we do this, and it's just a really important time for us to kind of key in and clue in our customers, the people in our community, to know that it's super important to protect their income or protect their mortgage. So if something happens to them, their family's good. They can stay in the house, keep paying the bills, and it's just important because a lot of family goes, wow, I have it at work. Mm-hmm. And typically that's 1 or 2 times income. So after a year, it's going to be tough for the families to stay in the house, keep going, have them do the things that you hope and dream that they'll do in sports and in band and other activities.
Do you think that, I always wondered about this, is that with housing prices going up, does it reflect, does the insurance reflect the prices as the inflation rate and such? Does that go up and come down from time to time?
Yeah, it does. I think even we experienced that through COVID. If you think about the car insurance, we came down about 21% actually with car insurance in 2020. And we are just now coming back into the 2019 rates. Okay. So a lot of people will call the office and say, man, what is going on? And this is happening to all insurance companies. But we're saying, hey, a lot more people driving on the roads, and the cars are a lot more expensive to repair. Mm-hmm. Just the parts and the labor is just, with inflation, is a lot more expensive.
All right. We are getting people watching on our Facebook page. And do you mind doing your Mario accent?
The Mario goes, Luigi, we have to go. Let's go. Let's do this right. Come on.
There you go. Do you have Italian in you? What?
No. I've got everything else.
All right, that's fine.
Everything but Italian.
That's right. We're talking with Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. A big topic that we want to talk about this morning, and it's a serious topic, even though we have and you even brought white gloves.
White gloves. Yep, got to have our gloves.
Very cool. Is teen driving, mm-hmm. and this kind of goes in with the Insurance Awareness Month too, is that you want to be able to keep those kids safe. And so you've developed a program to reward your staff, mm-hmm. Not only for the teen drivers, but for everybody out there. Mm-hmm. But more and more we see teen drivers, hey, we got to get our first car for, mm-hmm. Back to school and getting the kids back and forth to school. But so we're going to be talking a little bit about the program that you implemented. But the seriousness is, teens are more on the road these days, and they aren't experienced drivers, and that's not a hit on them or anything like that. It's just there is a lot of accidents when it comes to teen drivers, right?
There is, Luigi. We have a lot of accidents in that 16 to 25-year-old range. Mm-hmm. And again, like you said, we're not picking on them. It's just a fact. The experience takes time. Mm-hmm. To get 100,000 miles under your belt, to get 1 million miles under your belt, just takes time and practice. So you think about anything you get to do well.
Yeah.
An instrument. You are trying to get better in tennis, whatever that might be, it takes time and trying to do that the right thing. And I think we have to, as parents, guardians, just kind of help the kids and the students work through that over time. Like, hey, this is a privilege. This is expensive, and yes, we want you to be able to drive. We want you to have the freedom. We all love the freedom. Wow, this is great. Once we're in our own car or a car on our own, it's awesome.
Yeah. Motor vehicle crashes, Mario, are the leading cause of teen fatalities in the United States. That's a scary point. You brought up a moment ago a million miles and so on and so forth in regards to getting that experience level. Do you think that there is any sort of statistics out there about how many miles we really how to explain it, this question, and I hope you know where I'm going at, is, the more we drive, we think that we're more experienced, right? And when we draw that experience, is there sort of that number of miles that you feel like you've gotten to in the next point? Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, if most people commute and they drive 12,000 miles, that's the national average. Okay. Now that's commuting every day. So that may or may not be how long it takes to drive to school. Usually it's less miles to get back and forth, no matter where you live, for students than their parents driving to work.
So it could take years.
It could take years.
Before that you really feel like that's an experienced driver.
Well, and the other part of it too, Chris, that we know is scientifically, not that I'm a scientist, but I think there's enough studies that show that our brain physically is continuing to develop. So if we realize this as parents and guardians, like, hey, there's an element physically of them developing their brain to understand when things are going to happen, how they're going to happen. As a student, they say the frontal cortex isn't fully developed until age 25. And here Mario's talking about frontal cortex.
No.
But I think that element of just understanding, like, it just takes, it's a time factor. And for us to realize at any moment, to continue to encourage our kids to drive really safe and to take time. That's the biggest thing I see when I'm on the road, is when I see a young person, it's, tailgating. They're right on your back. They're trying to figure out how to get around you. And of course, safe passing is left. But even if they on US 10 will want to pass right or on US 31, they want to get around you.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that we want to see. And the nice thing about small towns where we live, Oceana County, Lake County, Manistee, Mason County, is that we know that parents have eyes in the back of their head. And we as parents know students, know cars, especially in our neighborhood. We need to help each other keep our kids safe.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of these points. Safe driving tips for teens. Ensure compliance with the graduated driver's license laws. They say many states have rules that prevent teens from driving at night or with other teens. Know the laws in your state and possibly set stricter standards as a parent. What do we have to deal with here in regards to teen driving?
I haven't heard, to be honest, real strictness in Michigan like there are in some of the more populous state out east, California. They have some more stricter laws than even we do in Michigan. So now getting back to why do they do that in those other states, it makes sense. Driving is more difficult. And with being inexperienced, it only increases that challenge, right? And the biggest thing about other kids in the car, especially at 16, and arguably even at 17, is just the distraction. And in fact, that's where a lot of the accidents come. Somebody yells, it's more that they see somebody else or that they're like, wow, check that out. And the driver is turning his head, and all of a sudden you're going, whoa, what in the world is going on? And at that moment, that's the distraction.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
and we don't always pin it down to cell phone usage and texting and talking on the phone and apps and so on and so forth, although that is a big and probably the biggest contributor, I would assume.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's the biggest increase. Back in the day, it definitely was drinking and driving. Remember the students against and the mothers against drunk driving, and using any kind of substance when you're driving is just, you're adding the increased chance of something happening. And we at State Farm are trying to just help parents in this space. That's why we talk about safety. That's why we're talking about what can we do to make sure we're informed to help our students be in a better place long-term and safe.
Absolutely. And here's a question before we go on to the next tip. When I took my driver's ed class, I was just turning 16, and I was excited to get my license. I almost feel like this day and age, there's a lot of teens that are opting out not to get their license right at that driving ability age. Is that more this day and age or not?
I think so. I think it's more societal,
okay.
In terms of our culture has kind of accepted that. And I think it's as much of, perhaps just a lot of different factors that parents are going into. Part of it can be cost, not just of insurance, but just having an extra car, having the ability to have them have it, and just the ability to make enough money to kind of make it worth it for that student at that time, you know. Yes. So, and part of it can be too is just there's a lot of pressure for students to perform, the competition to get good grades, to do well in school, while they're in an activity is never been higher. And sometimes I think that, that's my personal opinion, that may be too high, that we're putting pressure on students. But I think those are the factors why we're seeing, students not get their driver's license until 17, 18, 19, sometimes even later.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at some point, we got to have it, to have the independence to, go get a job and, start to be a factor in helping out society.
This next point, if you're just joining us, by the way, we're talking with Erin Doan, who's in the Mario costume. You can watch that here on our Facebook page. Brought me a Luigi costume, so I've got that. And we were looking at a picture before we started. It was like, mustaches have to go up. So they are going
just to make sure we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is the restrict night driving. As an insurance agent, do you see that we do have teen driving accidents that happen at night?
Yeah, I would say let me just kind of say of my kids' accidents that they had. So isn't that interesting that I would say it like that? I have 3 adult children now. We had 4 accidents for 3 kids.
Okay. Yeah.
One of them was a rollover, which was really scary.
Absolutely.
Which my daughter said, "Dad, hey, I was in a little accident. I'm fine, but I need you to come get me." And of course, I pull up to the scene, and she is rolled over, and I'm of course then freaking out. Where is she? But all of them for our family was at night.
Okay.
So, yeah, I do think that is definitely a thing. And the later the night gets, as we all know, there's other things that occur on the streets and happen in terms of, people coming out of different establishments that we need to be also just aware of, So that curfew time, each family and parents got to go through this. So what does this have to do with driving? Well, it has a connection. As a parent, you've got to make a informed decision. What are we going to do with our kids as it relates to curfew and driving at a certain hour? Maybe it makes sense for your family, like, hey, we're going to drive after 11. I get it if you will call ahead or you let us know, like, hey, I'm running behind. Hey, that's it. After 11, we're going to come pick you up. So different things like that the family and the parents need to make a decision on that's going to help their kids be safer on the roads.
You talked about keeping a safe following distance. That's important. Any driver, any age, you never know what's going to happen or what's on the other side of that person's vehicle in front of them. But that's always a huge. Limit teen passengers. You hinted a little bit on that in regards to that distraction of what happens there. Do you feel that insurance companies are encouraging that, and is there, not that there is a limit to the number of passengers, or is there? I mean,
some states have a limit. They do. Yeah, they do.
Well, and I would assume that is obviously to allow that teen driver to focus on his or her travels. But it can, as it says, the research has shown significant reduction in deaths were associated with graduated driving laws, including a restriction on carrying passengers or the number and age of the passengers carried. And they say make sure your teen knows how to keep passengers safe. How is that? How do we keep those passengers safe, do you think?
Well, I think the big one is just to, once somebody, let's just say, is rambunctious or whatever, is having enough strength in your own peer pressure, right, to go, hey guys, man, take a chill. I'm driving here, and I got to concentrate. There's a lot of people, especially as we're finishing up the summer, that are not from our towns. They're not from Manistee or Mears or Baldwin or Ludington or whatever, or Scottville. They're not from here, so they're not knowing where they're going. So with a distraction, I think that it's the driver's responsibility. And so as a driver, you have that. You have to kind of take control of that situation. And I would say also seatbelts. Hey, even in the back seat, put the seatbelts on. Recently, we had a chance and a privilege to be in Europe. And their beeper, right, or their alarm inside all the cars go off when the back seatbelts aren't on.
Oh, really? Wow.
All of them. So we're like, wow, okay, well, get the darn seatbelt on, even in the back seat. So
is our state law, and I'm sorry that I'm not sure of this, but if you are in the back seat, I understand the safety standpoint, but are you required to have?
Not that I know of.
Wow.
Now, I'd love for somebody on Facebook to kind of tell me and correct us on any of this. If there's some elements that we can all learn, even for me as an insurance agent, and obviously I have other insurance agents listening too, and other business owners and parents, let's help each other with what you post on Facebook to let us know, like if you know that this law has changed or recently or it's in the last couple of years, we're all ears. I'd love to hear about this. So, but no, as far as I know, not in Michigan, do you have to have your seatbelt on in the back seat.
They say share the car to prevent speeding. Parents can also set a good example by practicing safe driving themselves. Do you think that parents influence their teens?
Well, I would hope. I mean, if you kind of think about it as a parent, it's a challenge. I mean, anybody that's had a teenager, again, sorry, teens, I don't mean disrespect. I was a teenager once, but we turn 14, 15, you're 16 years old, and we know everything. And so that's where that respect of the car has to have some consequences. This, again, parents have to say, this is a privilege for you to be able to drive the car. Yeah. So I think parents can have an influence, but they've got to influence it and then hold tight on that. And I'm not trying to tell parents what to do, but I'm just saying if you can be in this space a really strong parent, like this is unacceptable or this is exactly what you do, anything else, and you're not going to have the car. Yeah. You're not going to have it for a week or a two or whatever. We're going to take it away from you. Take the keys, and after a couple weeks, you can have them back as long as you follow the rules. Let's
talk about the consequences, because you mentioned the privilege, but with that comes consequences. If they do get pulled over, if they do get in an accident, how much of it is more extreme in those incidents where we get a ticket, we get in an accident, as a teen versus as an adult?
I would say in our community we're I don't know what the correct word is, perhaps that we have just less risk here, and so therefore less risk, typically less really, really big accidents. And often I see they are with the parents. Don't get me wrong. Our family and extended family has experienced death. And I don't mean to be a downer on this, but my daughter's boyfriend passed away in a car accident homecoming night about 5 years ago. And that was a very tragic, super hard thing for my daughter that she's still going through. So I think we all have to go, oh, right, this is a very, very serious thing. My parents used to say, we're driving a 2,000-pound bomb. And I'm like, geez, what the heck? Well, there's some serious to it. When you're going down the road 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour with a 2,000-pound thing, you have the chance of really serious things happening. But thankfully, in our community, more times than not, it is an older, even experienced person that's having those bigger accidents.
Okay. And so that helps to say it's not a stereotypical, there's a stereotype in regards to teen drivers. Those are the ones that are getting in accidents all the time. That's we got to throw that out. We just have to focus on that there are some great teen drivers out there, sure. And there are some that have that inexperience or maybe some nervousness out there, and that conversation that parents have, or that shared driving. I'm going to drive today. You can drive tomorrow, or drive this afternoon. So and so
reducing
forth.
Risk for everybody in the family, including the parent in that space, until they get more experienced and they get older. So I think the one thing just to realize again in this space is that it just takes one time. And I think that, granted, the one time, and when we were talking a minute ago, Luigi, we were talking about the size or the extreme accidents being perhaps an older person. But that doesn't discount frequency. The reason premium cost of insurance is more as Luigi State Farm is because the frequency, more students do have accidents. And my kids were all good drivers, but like I mentioned earlier, all of them have had an accident. Okay. And that's very, very common for, students, is to have some kind of typically fender bender, which is thankful for that.
Let me ask you just a couple quick questions, and before we wrap up, or before we talk about your program that you have going on at Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. But school parking lots, accidents happen in school parking lots. Is that different than an accident on the roadway?
Well, I think, yes. I think because there's so many blind spots in the parking lot, I think it's different in terms of how it's handled, was the car parked and things of that nature. Leaving a note is just the right thing to do. If you bump another student's car and you create a little dent or damage, it's the right thing to let that other student know and do the right thing.
But if that student leaves the parking lot, could they be in deeper trouble?
They could be. Okay. I'm not sure necessarily that most parents would press charges per se in terms of criminal, but I think civil-wise, possibly, depending on the damage and if they had insurance, there may be some need for them to go after and have them pay, even in a no-fault state. What happens when you're when a car is parked is that turns into liability. Not to confuse people listening, but the no-fault element is a little different when you're on the roadway. When you're parked, it's actually the liability insurance that will pay the other person's insurance. Normally, in a no-fault state like Michigan, is your insurance pays for you if you get hurt, and it pays for your car to get fixed. Okay. Yeah, it's a little different.
Okay, absolutely. And then I guess my last question is this, is that, we always talk about the teen drivers being on their parents' insurance, that threshold of age where, we should be transitioning that teen driver to that driver to their own policy, and could an accident or a ticket as a teen driver affect that parent's policy even after they take that driver off in the future?
So there's a lot to unpack there, but I will just say in general, it's less expensive to not have the teen have their own vehicle in any situation. To drive the parent's car is the least expensive. Okay. Then if you're going to have if you will, a children's car, a lot of times some teenagers in the household will share a car. So when they share a car, it's basically usually what we call a PLPD car. It's a car without comp and collision. It's less expensive. Now, when there's a collision, an at fault, a ticket, yes, it just depends. That car can hold that ticket, which then makes that student vehicle a lot more expensive. Okay. There's times where parents go, we can't even afford it. We're going to get rid of that car and have you come back on. Okay. The challenge is then that is still rated for a while if there was no discount, for longevity for that before you had that accident. So unfortunately, it can be about a 3-year process without longevity of that insurance company to have to pay on that ticket for that student. So, again, they can get through it. They will get through it. Most parents have to do it, but a lot of times with the PLPD car, it's a car that doesn't have coverage, so they may or may not even turn it in. Okay. If it's not turned in, we don't know about it. When do we know about it? When there's a ticket. Okay, and an accident that's turned in. But on a nicer car, if parents have 2015, 16, 17 year car for their students, it's really nice. It's got full coverage. Wow, that's really nice. They're typically going to turn in that claim even with a ticket, and they need to because it's that nice of a car. Okay, that makes sense. And you answered my next question, which was if somebody gets a ticket or in an accident, as let's say a teen driver, that 3 years is really the hardest time in regards to increased cost. Points dropping off, is that right? Yep.
Okay, and so really that 3 years they've got to kind of ensure that there's no additional accidents or issues?
Yeah, I think, let's just say that it happens. I think a lot of parents and a lot of students, they all of a sudden are forced to become a lot more careful because they need to make money for their future, whether that's going to a technical school or going to college or whatever, is they need to have the ability to earn some money so they can start saving some money for their future. And so then they become forced, Luigi, more careful.
Nice. The Mario and Luigi costumes today leads me into my final question, which is what's happening at Erin Doan State Farm Insurance with these coins and everything else that's happening?
So this is Life Insurance Awareness Month in September, and we find that to be a heartfelt thing, meaning we know that we have 700 life policies on our books in my little agency in Ludington. And what that means is about twice a month we hand parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren life insurance checks from somebody passing. Okay, so we take it really serious.
Wow.
It really makes a huge difference. And I always call it, it can add injury to insult when you don't have money to continue your lifestyle. So this is just an awareness to know that having life insurance just at work isn't always enough. And Luigi, you think about our family, as brothers. We need to make sure we're protecting our family.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to do. So the goal we're going to do internally is if we have a good conversation with somebody, then hey, I had a good conversation, you get a gold coin. All right, woohoo! And then if you, be able to put together a quote, you get a few coins.
Okay.
And if the person says, yes, I need to take care of this life insurance, that team member in my office will get 5 coins.
That's cool.
So we're just having some fun while we're on a really serious subject to make people feel more comfortable and not so stressed about this decision. We'll help them make it easy, help them make it affordable.
That's great. A great program there. And so if you see and you're already in red and white on a normal day,
Yes.
now you have the hat to match along with it. But we appreciate you discussing this teen driving. And I think the biggest message that we can take out of this or take from this is that parents have those conversations with their drivers, be examples for them, and even if it's sitting in the passenger seat or explaining some things as you're driving down the road, it doesn't just end with driver's education. It extends into the practice of actual driving with real life experiences, right?
It does, and I think it's one of those things that you realize as parents into our current culture and society that as much as even adult children would like our input, it continues. So here we think in our teen years, well, let's just get them through the teen years. From experience, I have 3 adult children doing well. They make their own decisions, but every now and then there's some input or some advice given into their 20s. And I'll tell you, I think that's more common in our society today than it was 30 years ago. I just feel like that there is a connection and relationship. Part of that's probably communication via text or FaceTime. No matter where the kids are, they can quickly hey, I was thinking about doing this. I don't really want to know from you, but at the same time, what do you guys think? So I think this, helping kids be safe drivers is just a step into their 20s and into their future adulthood that we can help them with. Be safe.
All right. Good message there. Erin Doan, State Farm Insurance, right there between Ludington and Scottville, north side of US 10. And how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can get a hold of Mario today and my Mario team, Mario Kart, and we'll be driving quite a bit this month. So, you'll be able to catch us. 757-3115. Again, that's 231-757-3115, or find us on Facebook at Erin Doan Insurance. It's ERINDOAN.
All right, sounds good. Erin, quote Mario,
Luigi.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the costume.
It's been a pleasure, man. We're having fun.
No, I appreciate it. I'm not a humorous person, but today I'm feeling
you're humorous,
it.
and you looking humorous, my friend.
Hey, thanks. Especially with the mustache. There you go.
We're gonna get it off here in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of irritating. No, it's all right. It's great. It's fun. We appreciate it. Erin, thanks for coming in, and as always, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And thanks for Heather for making this happen.
Yeah, thanks, Heather Bush. Bush. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It is 8:59, just seconds away from the top of the hour. News, weather coming your way at that time. Stick around for it. Right here on Hot Country Hits 99.9, home of your new country and your all-time favorites. And for us on 102.7 WMOM, same thing. News, weather coming your way in just a matter of moments.